the communication and alignment process is, first of all, focused on defining the communication plan. And the communication plan is obviously an important subset of the overall change management plan. And this communication should promote the project culture and awareness within the context of the culture of the overall organization. And effective communication is a significant contributor to project success. And again, when we talk about effective communication, we're not talking about just a monthly newsletter that tells everyone where we're at with the project. That's important, but what people really want to know and what's really going to determine how well people embrace the change is what the changes are specifically and what it means to them. And they're not thinking, what does this mean to the overall company? That's important, but what they're really thinking about is what does this mean to me as an AP clerk or as an engineer or as a customer service rep. I want to know exactly what my changes are, how I'm going to be affected, how my role and responsibility is going to change, and I want to understand that before you put me into training 30 days before go live. I want to have that understanding. So when we talk about communication, we're talking about a lot more than just that basic minimum mass communication that most projects do focus on. And as we'll talk about here today, communicating consistently, frequently, and through multiple channels is critical. So I think probably the most common. In fact, we did a survey on our website in the past and identified newsletters. Project newsletters were the most common employee communication vehicle out there. It was pretty overwhelming. Now, that's great. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but the problem is most companies kind of stop there. They think, well, if I do these newsletters and I keep telling people where we're at in the project and when we're going to go live and when they're going to get trained, why we're implementing the project, then we've kind of covered it. And that's important. I mean, don't get me wrong, that big picture view is important and that needs to happen. But it's that more grassroots targeted communication. That's really what kind of moves the needle organizationally to get people comfortable with the changes. And that's an area that most project teams don't understand or just don't have the time to focus on as they're going through their projects. So what we always advocate is to communicate all that is known about changes as quickly as the information is available. So we actually will have, you may have noticed in the graph, I'll go back to it here real quick. You may have noticed in the graph, if you look under the build and test phases here in that first row, you'll see some activities around facilitate change discussions. And you'll see it's repeated 3 times here, all 3 phases right in the middle of a project. And the reason for that is because that's kind of the meat and potatoes of what's changing. And as we're building the software and as we're testing it, we're always learning more about the business processes, and we're learning more about how roles and responsibilities are going to change. So in each iteration of these discussions, we are sharing more and more information with the employees so that they understand by work group, by location. We break it down to make it very meaningful to them so they understand what the changes are, so that by the time you get to down here, when you get to the training here, the end user training, you're not having a bunch of surprises and people kind of pushing back and questioning, why are these changes happening, and how is it possible that my role is going to change in this way that you're just now telling me that doesn't make sense, or it just isn't going to work. You're going to hear those kind of reactions, but you want to hear them over here, and over here you don't want to be hearing that message here at Go Live. So that's an important reason why the communication is so important. So we need to be communicating what's changing, when the change is going to take place, why we're changing, the benefits of the changes, and then again, this is probably the most important part, these last 2 bullets, how the change is going to be accomplished, how the change is going to affect my job and my life. I mean, that right there, that last bullet is probably the most important one, and that's, at the end of the day, that targeted communication, that specific communication on how the jobs are changing, how roles are changing, all that good stuff. That's ultimately going to help you work through some of the resistance that you're going to achieve. So then, again, by the time you get to go live, it should be almost an afterthought of more focused on the how things are going to get done and how we're going to do it in the system, and less focus on why. The why should be well discovered and understood well before the training.